This project is an honest and in-depth perspective of and from former students at Milton Hershey School. We call ourselves Milts.
An organic, open discussion of life before, during, and after attending MHS.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Milt Talk Podcast. We are here today with the lovely Carol Schilling, also known as Miss Schilling to many of us. Miss Schilling!
You're too kind.
Oh, no, Miss Schilling, we were so excited to have you on, and we're glad you said yes. You know, Warner was just thanking you a minute ago for your donation and your card and all the support you've shown us so far with the project. And you know, we just wanted to talk to you because you had such a unique story. You know, Milton Hershey School was a big part of your life, and I think a lot of us just knew you as a teacher, not realizing your full story. Can you give everybody a little bit of the background of?
Oh, sure. Yeah, my parents applied to be house parents at Milton Hershey, and we ended up moving from Philadelphia in March of 1963, and they were house parents in the junior division, as it was called back then. We were able to get a home very quickly in 1963. In June, we ended up at Kinderhouse.
Okay.
And so we had all boys at that time, obviously. And then they moved to Perry, which I also moved. It was after my senior year in 1971. Shows how old I am. And and then when girls came into the school, they decided to move on to Logan because they thought they had enough of raising my sister and I. They didn't want anything to do with the girls. And they said, boys were easier. And I said, okay. So they moved to Logan. By that time, I had moved out of the house. I had gone to college. I lived with them while I was teaching at Milton Hershey at Logan because I was hired. I was very blessed. Mr. Hoover hired me at Memorial Hall. I graduated in December of 1974 from Messiah College and then started at Memorial Hall. And I remember my days for Milton Hershey. January 6th, 1975 was my start date. And yeah, and I actually have two dates that I came to Milton Hershey. So had fifth grade there for a number of years. In that whole time span, we moved to Catherine Hall from Memorial Hall when they were expanding the enrollment. So we moved over at Christmas time. And now as a principal, I think, wow, what they had to do in their schedule at Catherine Hall in the middle of the year to fit the fifth grade classes in and allow them to go to some of the what we called specials, like library and art and music and all of that. And then towards the end of my career there, I taught seventh grade math for a few years. And in that time span of teaching, I took on 2 master's degrees, and my last one was education administration because I knew I wanted to be a principal, an elementary principal. And there wasn't a job for me there. So that was the hardest decision I had to make, to leave Milton Hershey when I got offered a job at public school. And so again, I was blessed. I went to Annville Cleona, which was right nearby by Lebanon Valley College. Stayed there for 3 years and then ended up at Lower Dauphin for 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah, as principal. And then my second date to come back to Milton Hershey was July 6th. So I had January 6th and July 6th, 2009. And Pete was a former student of mine in my fifth grade class. And I was wishing him well on an email when he was pursuing the presidency, when Tony Callistra actually got the presidency for those few years. And I wished him well in his pursuit of it. And I said, oh, if you ever need an elementary principal, let me know. But I put a smiley face because at that time I only had 6 years left to retire from public school. And he emails me back and he says, Miss Schilling, you have to come talk to us. And our principal's retiring. And I was like, oh, what do I do? I love Milton Hershey. What do I do? And that decision wasn't quite as hard, though. It was my calling to go back. And I promised him 6 years, and I stayed 8.
Wow,
Awesome.
that's nice.
So your whole career was in education. You knew early on that that was what was for you.
Yeah, surrounded by 14 boys at Kinderhouse. I was always playing with them, and I was helping out at Memorial Hall with Mrs. Long. I don't know if she was around as the librarian then at Senior Hall later, but she was the elementary librarian at the time, and I just wanted to be a teacher of some kind, an elementary teacher.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think you were a pretty darn good teacher because, like I said, I came in 6th grade at Milton Hershey School in '83. So I missed you in 5th grade, but I heard a ton about you, and I was like, man, I wish I would have had her. She's
Well, I was known to be a little tough. You can ask Jessica and Warner that, I just a little.
I didn't have you as a teacher. I wasn't that smart.
No. Stop it.
Had all the smart kids.
Nice.
I was in 5'5".
I was in
But
5'3".
that didn't, the 5'1" was only, they gave me that because my one master's, I studied gifted, and I was very interested in gifted education. And they said, oh, we don't have gifted education at Milton Hershey, but we'll give you the top 5th graders. And but the rest of the sections, it didn't matter what number it was. So, but I could have been 5'5", but it just happened I had 5'1".
Amazing. Can you also stated,
Let me ask you this, Mrs. Schilling. What about the school? Because you said you grew up, I mean, your parents were house parents there. What was it like to share your parents with other kids?
Yeah. And it was interesting. My sister, I have one sister, and she was in 7th grade at the time. I was in 4th grade at the time when we moved up. So I fit in with the age group of boys that we had. That was a difficult time because, again, at that time it was junior high. But for her to move from her friends, established friends, that was tougher. She did not have quite the feeling about Milton Hershey School as my love for Milton Hershey. Since then, she's come around a lot more. But I didn't realize until after they retired, 27 years later, I was like, wow, I have them all to myself now.
Right.
I don't have to share Mother's Day. I don't have to share Father's Day. I don't have to share my birthday in August because school was in session.
Right.
And so at the time though, I didn't think, it was like we were all one family and it didn't matter. But yeah, it wasn't until after they retired, I just went, yay, I have them back to myself now.
Right. Well, I mean, it's a testament to the love you have for the school for you to, again, to share your parents with other students, but to also go back as a teacher and then eventually an administrator. So what was it about it that that gripped you? What was it about it that really gripped you?
Yeah, the mission, obviously, and the kids. Kids are kids no matter where they are. It's just that the Milton Hershey kids just grab you, at the heart. And I'm sorry.
No,
I love
ahead.
my kids. You guys will always be kids to me. I didn't have kids, and so you guys are my kids.
Awesome.
That Miss Schilling,
awesome.
we appreciate it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I mean, just to let you know, because you said that you weren't so popular, I posted your letter I think I did it on Instagram, but then it went to Facebook. And you may want to go revisit that and see if you are
You are
more popular than you think you were.
Very well.
Oh yeah, very well loved. Very well loved.
Ah, that's sweet.
I think us as students, we could tell who really cared and who was just there
Mhm.
for a job. You know, there were people coming and going all the time. And I think, you know, like Warner was saying, you see the statements, you know, that we did Mr. Whitman's, and, you know, it was interesting how tough he was on himself. And I don't know that he realized how much of an impact he had on all of us. And I was hoping that, you know, when I called him, I said, I hope you're reading some of this stuff
Mhm.
in here.
Yeah.
And so the
Yeah.
same with you, you know, it's got to be. Let me ask you this, Michelle. Your parents, did they keep in contact with a lot of the students over the years afterwards?
Oh, absolutely. They ended up being a parent in 2 or 3 weddings, I think,
That's all.
and a grandparent to one of their boys' sons when he got married. And when we had a retirement party for them, we had boys flying back from California, Florida to attend the retirement party. So they
Mhm.
stayed in touch, and Mom took a lot of pictures, which back then, you know, without the digital cameras and all on your phones, that was unusual. So she, before she passed away, started to mail out the pictures
Oh,
to
that's
the
all.
boys if she had their address. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. What she didn't finish, I cleaned up and did it because I had access to addresses.
Right, right. That's awesome.
So, Miss Schilling, um, were you able, because you were there for so many, like you were there, then you left, and then you came back. But you were there at such a young age. You got an idea to kind of see the demographics of the people there and the people that were working there. And so, coming from a perspective of a teacher, could you see who had what it took to make it as a teacher and who didn't, like immediately? Or could you see that when people came on, that like the new teachers that came on board? Could you tell?
Yeah. I would say back then, the people stayed. It was unheard of for a teacher to leave Milton Hershey, to go for another job somewhere else. I was probably one of the first, not the first probably, because I don't know earlier than that, but probably one of the first to leave, you know, to say, well, I want to be a principal and you don't have anything for me here. I got to leave to pursue my passion. So very few of us left. And then to hire, I was part of the hiring process there as a principal. Yeah, you're really looking for someone special.
When you did leave, did you keep up with the school? Like, did you follow like sports or and keep in touch with like a lot of
Yeah.
the,
Oh my, yeah. You know, because it was such a hard decision to leave, being there for so long. My social friends were my teachers there. Eula Webster, my buddy. Eula and Connie Jennings and Nikki Donor, Deb Brown, who was Deb Knox, Mrs. Knox.
Oh my God. Yeah.
They were, you know, Tammy Queen. You guys might have had Mrs. Queen. Miss Hack was her maiden name. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So they were my social friends. And so, yeah, I kept up with them, always looking in the Hummelstown Sun every week for what's going on sports wise. But my heart, I knew, even though I was doing my job in those other places, I knew I loved the mission of Milton Hershey School, and always dreamt. If you want to hear the strange story, was that I wanted to be principal there so badly, but you know, I believe God has a path for you. And
About
so his timing was 20 years later, I got to be principal.
Yeah.
But that's okay. You
Right.
know, I learned a lot and brought those experiences back to Milton Hershey.
And,
Right.
and society changed too, as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was going to expand on that question and just kind of say, you know, having been there at such an early age, you know, and until going back in the later part, you watched a lot of growth. You've seen the school change, you know, and the times change. You know, we talk about how we got swatted and we got
Right.
back then. That was normal, you know, and
Yeah.
child labor with the hay and the straw and all that stuff. So you've seen it change over the years. What was it like seeing it from the inside and from the outside, you know?
Inside, I had one of the first fifth grade girl, Roxanne Upshaw. I had her in my class. She came in the spring of, 1977, I believe. The girls started coming in. And I felt so badly for her because she was the only girl in my class. So we had to be friends because
Right.
she
You
had
needed that
to stick
support
with me.
system.
Yeah. So I saw that occur, just that they went to social orphans. I think the biggest changes for me was going back as a principal and seeing the changes. First of all, much smaller class sizes. I was looking back at, I also volunteer right now, well, not right now because of the pandemic, but I volunteer at Kinderhouse, which is the school history. And I was looking back at yearbooks, and I just thought, man, I had like 20, 22 kids in my fifth grade class. Then back as a principal, they had maybe, depending on what grade level in my elementary, but they might have had 14 or 17 max. So the class sizes were smaller. I thought the change of inclusiveness of parents and sponsors, much more inclusive on campus and offering things to them to be included and to feel welcome. And then I also saw inclusiveness of house parents' kids, much more than when I was there.
Ooh,
I'm sure you were aware, super
Yeah.
aware because of your, your background. You were uber aware of that dynamic.
Yeah. And it was interesting because they could participate in everything that, and now I'm speaking elementary,
Okay.
but everything that the student home participated in, they were part of that. And I don't recall that as an elementary child growing up there, that it was as inclusive as it was when I went back.
Right. It was more separated, I'm sure, back then.
Yeah. So
What you said that you taught you had one girl in your class. What was yourself and the other teachers, what was the thought process when you learned that girls were going to be accepted? Was there any concerns that you had? Or?
Oh yeah. Now you got to remember, at the old Memorial Hall, I don't know if you guys were there at the old Memorial Hall, but right by the homestead, but it had 2 classes and the 2 classrooms shared a bathroom. So there was a door from both sides. So now I'm with Mr. Hicks. I'm paired with Mr. Hicks over there. And we're like, oh my goodness, what are we going? We got no help. How to do
no
help. And so like we're putting signs on the door, like go, stop. And so if even if it was a boy, they had to go in, open the other door, flip the sign so that no one would come in. It was crazy. And then, of course, swimming during gym class, I was like, okay, there's only one crazy locker room down there. I guess they're going to have to change in the little cubby area where they put their coats. I'll take the boys down. And now as a principal, I think, oh my liability. I left those few girls up there by themselves changing.
Well, there was a lot of that back when we were there. I mean,
yeah.
some of that stuff, and it's like,
yeah, and it's sort of like figure it out yourself. I'm like, oh great.
Oh my gosh.
Somehow we survived, Jessica. It was much easier. It was much easier when 5th grade moved to Catherine Hall, and there were girls' bathrooms and boys' bathrooms.
So, Michelle, I'm curious. You were nice enough to write that letter. Apparently, you've been listening to the podcast. Have you heard all of them so far?
Yes, I have.
This is an unusual question. So what are your thoughts on who you've been listening to and some of the stories? Is there something that hasn't been touched on that you think should be spoken about? Are you just enjoying them? Like,
I am enjoying them. Well, first of all, I had Bob Gert when my first half a year that I started teaching. I'm
right,
like, oh, he is such a character. They're going to enjoy that
right
conversation.
out of a comic book. Yes, he is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
And
My
had
God.
Philippa in my 5th grade, and I also had her in the band front because I started that for the girls. So I had her. Of course, Don was my principal, you know, so I always looked up to him, and I just enjoyed, and I laugh about, especially the barn stories and all of that, because I wasn't a part of the barn, but I love hearing graduates get together and talk.
Right.
I mean, that's the feedback we've been getting. People are just like, you know, I think as you become an adult, you just move on with your life and you forget about a lot of it. And you don't hear these names, you don't hear these buildings or, you know, the teachers, house parents, all that. And so the nostalgia, you know, the nostalgia factor is huge. People have been reaching out and just saying,
I'm big on nostalgia. I live and love my memories from Milton Hershey. Yep.
How was I'm sorry, how was your environment? Like you said you came in 75?
I started teaching in 75, January of 75.
Right, 75. So was there a lot of women teachers at the time at Milton Hershey School?
Only pretty much at the elementary. And at that time, I think Catherine Hall was just starting to get built. Well, I forget when they opened. Or maybe, no, I guess they were built in the 60s, late 60s. There were a number of women teachers out there, but more men were hired in the middle division. But there were mostly elementary. I think Mr. Hoover, Mr. Morgan, who was the assistant to him and the phys ed teacher there, and Mr. Hicks were probably about the only men down there at the elementary school. So, yeah.
So how was your, like, you know, because we're talking about the 70s and we're in 2020 now, things have changed a lot in the acceptance of a lot of things. So what was your treatment like as a young woman teacher coming in a, I want to say male dominated, but pretty much male dominated area? So like, how did they treat you and how did you feel? You probably had history because they knew your parents, but just curious.
Yeah, you know, that's an interesting question. Because I started at the elementary school, I was surrounded with mostly women, so that was no problem. And, you know, I must say it's probably more of being a single person that I have a couple funny stories. One was that every spring, right before the end of the school year, they would offer a Hershey Park day pass. Now you could get it if you were married and you had a family of 10 kids, how many kids, didn't matter. You'd get passes for all of them. But as a single person, I could get one.
Wow.
Give you a second pass?
Yeah, I
Wow.
kept saying to them, you mean I can't have one more?
Yeah.
And I said, I'm
They
not
want to
going to
make sure
park
you
by
remain
myself.
single, I guess.
Yeah.
They want to keep
I
you
gotta
single.
go by myself.
That's what you
Wow.
got to take it up with
I
Big
know.
Don. Like, listen, buddy.
Yeah.
So, but I could get one. So it is, you know, I have to laugh. You know, it was what it was back then. And, you know, I still got my Christmas turkey. That was the other thing you probably guys didn't know we got.
No.
For Christmas. We'd walk out for the Christmas holiday and Mr. Duran, and I'm sure it happened with Jack Storm and everyone else, the principal would stand there and say, Merry Christmas, and give you a turkey or a ham. You had a choice.
Wow. That's
That's
nice.
us. We relate because we're sitting here. We talk to a couple of the kids that are younger than us, and obviously, you know, you're still up there close to the school. We hear about these bikes and cars and apartments and full college runs, you know. And it's funny because when somebody's talking about, I'll look at Agoe and Warner and Jessica's face, and everybody just
We're like, what?
Hey, what year did you graduate? You know, just
Right.
You said you got what now?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you guys had to walk everywhere.
Oh, my
Oh
goodness.
yeah.
They get vanned everywhere pretty much now.
Mhm.
Which is fine, but it's just crazy how much it's changed, you know. I mean, and that's the living side. Do you think there's been much change academically at this? I mean,
Yes. When I went back as the elementary principal, they were much more focused on the academics, and they had started taking the state tests, the PSSAs, which turned education on its head anyway. And sometimes even in public school, I'd like, really, we have to worry about these scores all the time. We should enjoy our kids and teach them at the same time. So I didn't have that pressure. Yes, we gave achievement tests, but there was nothing that's, you know, someone wasn't looking at me under a microscope and saying, you didn't make that much progress with your kids. Or, I mean, we all made progress. We were all hardworking teachers. So the pressure of the PSSAs, because they want to compete with the public schools. They want to be able to say, we, you know, fare better than so many districts locally. And also what I saw a good change was the support service for those children with some learning issues. And they really provided, I know I had an excellent, they call them LAT, Learning Assistance Teachers, that the kids got that service. And those kids would progress like unbelievably, because a lot of times, maybe back even in your day, they came in 2 grade levels below.
right. Stuck there trying to catch up, and it's difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. So those services, you know, I was just so tickled with, you know, that they had finally provided some extra support for classroom teachers.
Right.
Hey,
Yeah,
Mrs. Schilling, Miss Schilling, I'm sorry. You
that's okay.
also said something about, I mean, just to piggyback off what you said about the changes of the school, you said that there's more involvement with the parents. Can you expand on that? Because I don't, besides Parent Weekend,
Right.
you know, besides Parent Weekend, that was the only time I saw parents like on campus for the most part.
Yes, that's very true. And that was what I remembered. So that was a little bit of a culture shock for me going back to Milton Hershey, but at the same time, I was used to parents being involved in the public school. So I was able to work with teachers to make more phone calls. Back in our day, we didn't see your parent until Parent Weekend. And by that time, school's over pretty much, you know? So you say, really loved having your kid in 5th grade. Don't know what to tell you, you know?
Good luck.
Or, you know, maybe you should have contacted me earlier. But, thanks anyway. But yeah, so they do that, and the school does more things like they'll provide meals when there are certain events for them that they never did for parents and sponsors. I think they have something at the Cocoa Bean game, if I can't remember, but they even had, when we had an open house in the fall for parents to visit on a Saturday, they would have, like, not a big breakfast, but they'd provide an orange juice and a fruit or a granola bar or something like that. But they'd have things for the parents. So I just felt like they did more for them. They provide classes for them, or at least they did when I was there, that just different, like, parenting type classes on those weekend visits. And if they're waiting to pick up their child at 4 o'clock on a Friday, maybe they'll have a special class at 1 o'clock.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
On Friday they got, I don't remember Friday getting no pass.
I think they can go home for the whole weekend now.
Yeah, they can do some long weekends now. So
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't have that. I don't remember anything
frowning
like
faces.
I think we only got that when you were like a senior in high school, and you would get like certain privileges. If you were like on the student leadership society or something, you got to go home like 2 or 3 weekends out of the year, but that was really it.
Yeah.
That was a selective group.
Yes, that was the selective group.
Yeah, all 4 of them.
Mhm.
You know, we've been giving a lot of credit to Pete. You know, I know a lot of people noticed that when he came back being a homeboy, a lot of things were addressed. But I got to say, hearing some of this stuff from you, Ms. Schilling, I feel like whatever assessment team they have beyond Pete sounds like they're doing a good job as well, that they're always progressing and trying to make it better for the kids, the experience, and their parents.
Yes, yeah, I really believe they are. I mean, it's huge now, the operation of that school. I mean, you have to increase the number of people in departments. Just the security alone, that was huge for me to find out there were cameras in the school hallway and all over campus. Of course, you better be careful walking down the hall yanking something, I mean,
Thank God I didn't take that
they'll
right.
call you.
Yeah, seriously.
I would have gotten more trouble.
Yeah.
Or you just got caught more.
Yeah, you got caught more. And if you ran
Exactly
into
my
Schilling
point.
Hall, you duck
Exactly.
walk, right?
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
that's how I know
Right.
you, Schilling, because I never had you in 5th grade, but I know that I had to duck walk. I know I did.
And you probably have really strong legs, Warner.
Yes, I did then. I don't know about now, but I did then. Oh, that was terrible. I forgot about duck walking.
Duck walking.
All the way down and all the way around. Wow.
Yeah, Donald Cross always reminds me of that.
I saw that on the thing, and when he said it, I was like, wow, I remember now when he was saying it. Even though I didn't have you in 5th grade.
I never had to do it, but I heard about it. I
Yeah.
never had to. I feel like if you went to the Milt at that point in time,
You
it's
knew.
something that everybody knew about.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But the music wing was down at the end of the 5th grade.
Yes.
So going down there, I was kind of always like, well,
Yeah, don't you cut through 5th grade either. I'll catch you.
That's right. Don't cut through the 5th grade. You weren't allowed to cut through the 5th grade wing.
That's right.
You had to go down those back
Steps
steps.
around.
Yeah.
Miss Waller, was that her name?
Miss Waller. Mm-hmm.
Francis Waller, right?
Yeah, Lynette Waller.
Lynette Waller.
And there was the Lemkes.
Oh, the Lemke.
Yes.
Don and Ann Lemke and
Yes.
Mr. Reichert, Hal Reichert.
Mhm.
He's the handbell guy, right?
The handbell guy.
Yeah.
We used to say, oh, the dinglings.
Gloves.
Oh, the teachers were not nice either sometimes.
Yeah.
You got to be able to laugh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So, of all your experiences at the Milt, what would you say was your favorite? Like being a house parent's kid, being a teacher, or being an administrator, or being a volunteer?
What about the principal
wow,
part?
that's tough.
That's administrator. That's the way I'm thinking.
Yeah, actually, my teaching years are my favorite memories. So that's why I would say teaching.
Okay.
And then, obviously it was wonderful to return as an administrator. And my volunteering is what a senior citizen does. We volunteer, but I'm learning so much. I call it my thinking volunteering because I'm learning about Mr. and Mrs. Hershey a little bit more. My first project there was to actually touch their personal items. Of course, I had to wear white gloves, and I had to measure it, and I had to describe it and put it all in the computer into their program. And, it was table napkins, and they were always monogrammed with not MHS, MSH, H in the middle.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I just got to touch, I just felt so privileged to be working at Kinderhouse doing that project. I was so thankful Susan Alger gave that project to me. Yeah.
Cool.
So you make it to become a principal. And I feel like that was your ultimate goal, correct?
It was. It was the full circle. I never burned my bridges, leaving
Right.
Milton and saying, oh, you owed me that job. When I could have been Mr. Whitman's assistant, but
Right.
you want to give a woman a chance,
Right.
but I go back to my faith and say, you know what, there's a reason for everything.
Right.
And in good time, I was able to go back and have my wish fulfilled.
So how did, like, you know, a lot of people, I feel like in life set goals and they set marks and somehow they don't always make the mark. How did it feel to accomplish your ultimate goal? Still fairly young, and you've done it for quite a long time. Then you got a chance to leave and go do it where you really wanted to. How you feel about that?
I am so blessed, so blessed. I had 42 years in education, and every experience was awesome. But to go back to Milton Hershey, be able to say I went back, the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is great.
What would you say was like your takeaway from Milton Hershey? Like when you, like once you, what was your takeaway after everything was all said and done? Like what was the most valuable lesson that you might have learned from students or staff or?
You know, don't take things for granted. Be thankful for the circumstance you're in, make the best of it. Because I had to when I left Milton Hershey. Like I said, it was the hardest decision I had to make. And, you know, you'll learn a lot if you have a positive attitude and, you know, you work hard. I did learn to work hard. Even as a house parent's kid, I didn't get out of doing dishes and shining the and I really tried to pay the boys to clean the apartment bathroom because my dad would come through. Say, did you do this? And I'd be like, oh, no. Okay. And, you know, I really tried to pay them to do it because they did a better job.
Right.
But no go. So yeah, I learned to work hard there and be responsible. Yeah, those are my takeaways.
Okay.
I'm surprised you never put on the house parent, you know, hat or thought about being a substitute there somewhere in between.
Yeah, I'll tell you, when I look today at what those house parents have to do in comparison to my parents could be more of mom and pop, you know, to the kids. They had, you know, the grass had to be mowed and just daily chores. Mom was always in the sewing room, you know, making shorts out of long pants and shiners out of the bottom parts. And, you know, it was more of a family and it still is, but the house parents, God bless them, have so much more responsibility. There's so much more with supervision. When they're out, the little ones are outside playing in particular, a house parent has to be out there.
Bigger microscope on them now.
Yeah, and now with this pandemic, those poor house parents are being teacher to how many kids have been left there on campus in their home. You know, they're 24/7. It's crazy.
It's interesting you're bringing that up because I've had a couple people ask me how the school's dealing with it, and I have no idea. You know, that's got to be the logistics of taking care of the haves and have-not. Some of them can go home, like you said. Some of them have to stay there. You know, that those lines get blurred really quickly, and it seems like it's a lot to take on for the schools. So,
yeah,
and it is about the perfect place for something like this to happen now.
In that perspective, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But like you said, it does put a strain on everybody that is all up there, though, because the lines get blurred and responsibilities get tripled. You know, so each and every one of them that are up there doing it.
Yeah, and the house parents, like even before all of this, when I was there, I mean, they must do lesson plans for the weekends. Because the kids would come back to school on Monday and they went here and they did this, or, you know, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we used to just go out and play, you know?
Yeah.
But house parents are taking them everywhere and doing all kinds of fun things with them. So God bless the house parents. They're working, I'm sure they're working doubly hard right now.
For sure.
All right. So I got a question. I normally ask, you know, to most of the people who were students, like, who was their crew when they got to school? Who did they go? So I'm gonna ask you, maybe not who your crew of students were, because I don't want anybody to feel slighted that they weren't your favorite student. But I did hear you say Philippa, who everybody mentions. But who were your teacher? Who was like your squad, your friends that you would, get information from, that you hung
The
out
ones
with?
we get in trouble with.
Yes,
Yeah.
Who
That's
were
what he's
they?
trying to say
Who'd you
politically.
go out
correct.
with on a Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah, who was your hangout?
Yeah. It was really the fifth grade. Cliff Ainsworth was in fifth grade. Danny Warner was in fifth grade for a couple of years, and I still see Danny. He goes to my church now when we have church. Yeah, I will. And Eula, and Connie Jennings, and Deb, Tammy. I was in Tammy's wedding. She was a lot younger than I was, so we were good friends. Yeah, Nikki Donor, Barry Donor.
Barry Donor.
Yeah.
That's my coach. So every time you say his name, I got to say it like that.
Yeah, Mr. Donor. I remember him. Yeah.
Leroy. Leroy would hang out with us sometimes too.
Right.
Leroy, yeah. So
How about the second time around as an administrator? The early crew.
actually, yeah, my crew was still them, really, because I still stay in touch with them. But yeah, I had a great assistant principal there, which I never had an assistant in public school, by the name of Matt Campbell. And Matt is now in charge of all the technology, student and classroom technology. So Matt was my good buddy. As an administrator, it's a little bit different, than being the teacher and making fun of the administrators.
Right. Different.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I do have one question that we couldn't ask anyone else because of your unique
perspective?
well, not perspective, I guess, because of your different, you were at the school, but then you weren't at the school. So my question is, what is this feeling of people outside of Milton Hershey towards Milton Hershey? So you were Lower Dauphin and Annville Cleona. Like, I mean, those are just two of them. But what would you say they would say about Milton Hershey?
I think there's a wrong perspective of what many of them believe to be about the Milton Hershey students. I think they think a lot of them are troubled youth. Not so.
Right.
Sure, they have crappy pasts, a lot of them.
Right.
But when I returned as a principal, I used to sit in the cafeteria at lunch and I'd look out and I'd just say, how, with all of the baggage that they have, how can they be so normal?
Yeah.
They're so normal, they're typical little kids, and yes, there's that handful that were more emotional support kind of kids, acted out and all of that, but that wasn't the majority.
Right.
I think sometimes outsiders have a wrong view of the makeup of the kids there.
Preach.
Right. I wish they'd get an opportunity to listen to this podcast, because just since I've been listening or involved with the podcast, and I'm sure everybody that's on can attest to this, we've heard you think you got a crazy story. Well, listen to this story.
Yeah.
And since we've been on, I've heard so many different stories that I've been almost taken aback, like, and you made it?
Yeah.
And not only did you make it, are thriving.
You made it.
And
thriving.
Really, right.
That's
And some people just to get up and get out of bed, for some of the stories I heard, would be a strong accomplishment.
Yes.
So I mean, there's some great stories out there. And when I say great, the fact that we got survivors, we're survivors in the Hershey School.
And and graduates that are making a difference.
Absolutely.
Making a difference in the lives of others, whether it's just in their own community or out there, just like the new, we just got the mailing for the alumnus of the year, who is out there defending the country and just making a difference in the world. But yeah, that's what I think does my heart the most good, when I see people like you guys, or my kids that I had in class, or my band front girls, woo woo, yeah, woo woo, that they're doing well, they're doing okay, and they have a good life, and they're good citizens. So that's what warms every teacher's heart. And at Milton Hershey, those kids, you guys are the ones who come back to us when we're at those events and you're talking to us, and that means the world to us.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's huge, Michelle.
That is
Huge.
awesome.
Jess, can you hit her with some of the questions?
I do have some questions, and I had to revise some of them because you weren't really a student there, but you can answer some of them. What was your favorite candy bar to get in? Remember they used to deliver a candy bar every week? Were you there when they used to do that? No.
Looks like
A candy bar?
It's like a candy bar.
No, we got a turkey.
We got one up.
Turkey once a year. That was it, right?
That was it, turkey.
The turkey
Yeah, the
bar.
students used to get every Friday. We used to get a candy bar.
A student.
A student.
Oh.
Every Friday. We would get
Yeah.
No, I didn't get a candy bar every Friday.
No, not even when your parents were house parents?
No, I remember them every once in a while sending candy
Okay.
bars in, but I don't remember it like every
He
week.
owes you
I
some
I
remember
don't
candy.
ice
remember that
cream.
either.
Ice cream
Oh, the
every
ice cream,
Sunday.
yeah.
ice cream every Sunday. Yes.
Every
Yeah.
Sunday
Every Sunday.
at lunchtime. Ooh, ice cream. And that was the best ice cream.
Yeah, it was friendly. I think.
Chocolate chip.
Friendlies.
Well, it was Hershey Estate initially.
Oh,
Hershey
Oh.
Estates had their own ice cream.
What happened?
whatever.
We didn't get
We got friendlies.
I don't know. You might have and didn't realize it.
no.
And then
It
it was the red.
friendly.
It was the
The
red.
red
box
box.
Oh,
with
the red
friendlies
box.
written on there,
Friendly.
like a.
Sometimes Turkey Hill, right?
And
Yeah,
then
that's no. They owned Friendlies at the time.
Okay.
That's why you got Friendlies.
Uh,
Good price.
good price.
good price. All right. So, what was your favorite class or subject to teach?
I loved math. I loved. Can I share you a quick story?
Sure.
So Philippa's class, and there were a bunch of them that graduated that year that I had in 5th grade. So they go up to the high school, and they're in this advanced course, and I forget who the teacher was, maybe Mr. Hoover?
Probably.
Hoover?
Yeah.
So he says to them something about, I bet your 5th grade teacher said, hurry up and let's get this math done, and then I'll read to you. And they started laughing, and they said, oh no, Miss Schilling loved math. But we can also tell you every book she read aloud to us, and they started listing them all.
Nice.
That was a story from Philippa. So yeah, they couldn't get out of doing math with me. No, I loved teaching math and the whys of why things happened in math. So yeah.
All right. What was your favorite meal at Milton Hershey?
Shepherd's pie.
Really.
Excited there. Put you
was
right
almost
there.
waiting
Give
for
a
that
lot of room.
Oh, I loved their shepherd's pie. I still do.
Nice.
What was the
I
worst
could
meal?
ever eat it.
Liver.
Yep.
Oh, my mom tried to hide that
High
with
five on
bacon or
that.
whatever. I'm like, no, it's still liver. I used to again try to pay the boys to eat my piece.
You were working them out over there. You had the
How
boys
much
do
money did
everything.
you have when you were little?
Well, I don't know, but I was willing to pay for them to eat.
That's
liver.
right. I would have paid anybody to eat that liver.
No, you ain't lying.
Any
Liver.
liver. I'm not eating it. I'm not eating it.
I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for the meal bus to come. I don't like to cook.
Listen, I'd pay for that service right now too.
Yeah.
Right at the
Right.
front door. We're ready to catch it.
I'm just not trying to clean those. I'm not trying to clean
Those
those. The
Kettles?
steam. Yeah, I'm not doing it.
kettles.
You know, 'cause
That's what the kids are for.
they're not going to do it the way we're supposed to, so I can't accept it. So,
That's true.
so
Jess, we got any more?
Nope, that was it, because I asked my other one earlier on.
Okay.
And then ago he stole my other question.
oh,
so.
stop it. Let it go. Let it go.
Guys, did you have anything else for Ms. Schilling?
I'm
Are you
good.
talking to me?
Great interview.
Oh,
Yeah.
Great conversation.
Conversation, yes.
Yes, sir.
Great.
Great
No, I
conversation.
just wanted to say thank you, Ms. Schilling, for taking the time out to actually do this with us. I think it's awesome. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Again, it was such an honor and such a pleasure to meet some of you guys, even though I knew your names, I just had never met you. And you guys have such wonderful, deep voices for singing. I love music.
Joey,
That's
Warner.
Joey.
That's
That's Joey.
Oh, Goey.
Man.
It's only a Goey, really.
It's
That's
really
why
good.
we get him to do all the voiceover stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Schilling, before we go, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to speak on anything or, something you wanted to talk about that you didn't get a chance to. I'd just like to give everybody a chance at the end to talk about.
No, I don't know where my life would have been had my parents not moved up here to Hershey. My sister and I have talked about that quite a bit because our parents' friends, many of their children did not go to college. And, so you wonder, what would I have been a teacher? We wouldn't have had money. I mean, I got scholarships. They used to have a Hershey scholarship for Hershey employees' children. So I was able to get that. And there was a state scholarship at the time for people who didn't make very much money. And of course, house parents back then did not make a ton of money. But, I'm very thankful, Milton Hershey School, because not only did it give my parents a job, it gave me a wonderful career. Because I don't consider teaching and being a principal a job. It's definitely a calling, and it is definitely a career choice.
Well, we're as thankful as you are that you chose to, stay the path and be a teacher and be part of the Milton Hershey School family in all those different capacities. And thanks for making time and coming on and joining us.
Oh, thank you so much.
The drop.
Wish you guys all well.